Hello folks, what you're looking at here are the remnants, at least what's left in here, of my 1948 John Deere B. Just about completed disassembly, as you can see. I'm going to start working on putting this thing back together, doing a full restoration. Got all the gears out, replacing almost all the bearings. Some of the rear axle outer bearings were actually pretty good. If you take a look here, they still spin really nice. They don't have any pitting on them. This tractor sat for about 20 years unmoved. So inside it still had oil in the transmission case. So most of the gears are good. Some had some pitting that I might replace. Just about all of the other bearings though I've taken out. If you look, I got one of the new outer races in there already for that counter shaft. Got all the motor out, and that's in the machine shop. Now, getting honed out. Surprisingly, it didn't need rebored. It's still original bore size. So yeah, just a little background. We'll start putting this thing back together with the rear end here. To get these inner bearing races out, the John Deere manual, which I must first say is an excellent manual. If you're doing anything like this, highly recommend getting the manual. This was the first part though where I found that it just, I don't want to say it was wrong, but it kind of was. So the inner bearing race, here's the old one. You know, it sits in that recess, and the manual said that you could pound out the oil seal using a bar through the axle housing, and then using that bar you could pound out this outer race. Well, I'm not sure if I can show you in here, but you know, this hole that the axle goes through is smaller than where the bearing outer race is. So you can't get a bar to reach that outer race when it's in there. So if you guys haven't watched his videos, YouTube handle 1 Minute Farming, he talked about in one of his videos how some of these outer cones, when they're sort of pressed in, that if you run a stick weld along them, they will get loose and pop out. And it worked. It worked very well. Once we put the weld on, it was loose. What we still ended up doing was putting a hammer behind here, facing it across the race, and then we still pounded out on that hammer and just got this to pound out, but it came out pretty easy. So just fun fact, even though heat normally makes metal expand, welding will sometimes contract metal, hence you get bowing of a plate. You know, if you have a flat plate and you weld a bead on top, it'll tend to banana the plate. Same concept here. So if you guys ever have trouble getting anything out like that pressed in, just run a little bead on it. So yeah, I'll get the new bearing races in. Then there's the washer that goes in on top of that, and then the oil seal. We'll get that tapped in. Then we'll get the bowl gears back on and those big nuts. So yeah, and as I think you saw, my axle's sitting here. Got the other one somewhat in there. I had to put it in before I put that rear housing back in because it's up against that wall. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave a comment or whichever. Thought I would give you an update, what all I've gotten done. It's been quite a while since I've been able to work on this. But so since the last video, I was able to get these big gears back in place. I got the right bearings because unfortunately I had ordered the wrong ones. I got the numbers mixed up in my head, and yeah, had too big of a bearing. So unfortunately I can't show it to you, but I did put the gauge on here and measured the play. I think it's around like 3 or 4 mils or 3 or 4 thousandths. The manual says between 1 and 4, so they still roll pretty nice. Like I said, brand new bearings on the inside. There I did leave the ones on the outside because they were still in good condition. Just a note, when you're putting these gears back in, if you are taking them out or taking them back in, what you're looking at is the front of the tractor here. Is the opening in the back is actually bigger. So my suggestion is take them in and out that way. Otherwise you can easily get one in here by tilting it, but you go to put the second one in, it gets a little complicated if you can even do it. So just come in from the back side. When you're doing that, make sure you've got your shaft kind of slid out. Get this gear on and then get it so the nut is just started, so that you have room to get this full gear width still in between them, with this shaft almost all the way pushed out. Slide that gear in here, get that nut started, and once you got them both started, then you can both really turn them down and get them locked up. But in order to get that 1 to 4 thousandths, kind of what I experience is you don't pull on those wrenches too hard. I mean, of course, you got to line up where your cotter pin goes to. So, you know, a sixth of a turn on these can go a long way. It's just something to note. Turning around, looking at the differential, you can see I do have this back in here. Sorry, it's not lit very well in there. I got the gauge on this at the moment. Again, the spec says 1 to 4 thousandths. If you look at the gauge there, say on one side, I can get to about 15, and when I go the other way, I can get it down to about 7 or 8. So I got about an 8 thou play there, so I need to take some shims out. As the manual says, the shims go on the left side of the tractor. You've got a steel shim, and then I just have a stack of paper shims. Just like the rear axle, you want 1 to 4 thou clearance there. I don't have a sealant on this yet. I went ahead and did on this side, because this side you know, doesn't get any shims or anything, but this side I don't have a sealant on, so I'm gonna try and account for that. I'm figuring that sealant will add probably a couple thou to it. So realistically, you know, I'm at about 8 thou clearance. Need to reduce that, but I'm also adding some sealant, so I might take out probably about 6 to 8 thou of the paper gaskets. So yeah, just wanted to show you guys what I had rigged up here and how this went together. That's all for the next step. Looking at starting to work on the transmission. Got all new bearings for that, and got to get them pressed on so I can start putting that back together.